There's a space race going on, and it's between Finland and Japan. Now, can anybody guess why Finland and Japan have a space race? Okay, well, here it is. It's wooden satellites. Wooden satellites. Yeah, you probably wouldn't have guessed that offhand. We'll get to why in a minute, and part of the reason is because we can. There's a plywood company in Finland called WISA, W-I-S-A. They've been working on a satellite, to put up made of wood, and they've been working on it since 2017. They didn't even reveal it until 2021. But there's two companies. There's WISA, which is really the main sponsor, and another plywood company called UPM. Both of them are in Finland. They're using birch plywood. I mean, this is a big thing. If you've been to one of those countries like Finland, they have lots of trinkets and crafts made out of birch. And, it's a natural thing. They do have to vacuum dry it, get all the moisture out, because otherwise it breaks down pretty badly. And there's a whole bunch of other partners. They're basing this on a CubeSat kit that's made for students. It's a company called KitSat that builds these things. And KitSat, normally, they make things you just might take up in a balloon, to kind of get practice, but then they have a ruggedized version for space as well, and that's what they're using. There's an engineering company. The European Space Agency did get involved. Well, one, they consulted on the project, and two, they're putting in a mini lab to monitor what volatiles end up coming out of the wood. And there's an oxygen sensor. They're coating the wood. Nobody thinks that the wood itself will just stand up without a little bit of help. So these people are putting down a aluminum oxide layer 1 nanometer thick, and that coating makes a big difference apparently in how long it lasts. Rocket Lab will launch it. They have done tests in the stratosphere with this, meaning balloons typically. But now they say they're waiting on a radio license, and this is since 2021. I find that hard to believe. Yeah, that doesn't quite pass the smell test. There's something else. Maybe they just don't have funding or whatever it is. I mean, it's probably true, but it's one of those things that you kind of wonder, so what? So anyway, the picture there, it shows you what the satellite looks like. It's all wood except for the edges, which are aluminum. Inside, of course, you still have electronics and metal parts. It's really just the outside we're talking about here. And the other part that's aluminum, of course, is that little selfie stick that's sticking out. Now, why do they need a selfie stick? Well, they want to take pictures to see how the wood decomposes over time. So that's a reasonable way to do it. So actually, that's the main reason for that whole engineering companies. They engineered the little selfie stick. Okay, the competitor, Japan. They're also, of course, building wooden satellites. Theirs is a little bigger effort, actually. They have a thing called LignoSat, and it's been going on since 2020. And this actually involves Kyoto University and Sumitomo Forestry. There's always going to be a forestry company. And actually, they're involved somewhat with NASA and the Japanese Space Agency. NASA, because it did testing on the International Space Station. The Japanese agency to organize getting their launch. They have tested this on the space station now for 10 months. They took samples of wood with some coating and stuck it on the outside of the space station for 10 months to get some feeling for how it would stand up. And they finally issued a report. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. This was a good excuse to finally do it. A report came out. So the report said that really the wood held up pretty well in two ways. One, it didn't decompose, parts didn't come off of it. It didn't deform. I mean, that was kind of a concern. How often in your own shelves do you find that your wood warps in your bookshelf or something? Including the ones that come out of the Scandinavian countries. They like magnolia. They found that was the best. So they're going to be sending a magnolia satellite. They don't talk about what their secret sauce is that's going to help make this work better. They hope to launch before 2024. It might even be in 2023, but they're hoping to launch by 2024. My money would probably be on the Japanese here. If you want to take bets, I'm not sure who would actually take that bet, but it's there. Okay, now we get to why. And the obvious one is, why do they do it? Well, because they can. There's a little bit more to it than that. They came up with a couple of reasons, I think, kind of after the fact. The first one is you can have antennas inside the satellite. They're protected. And that actually is an advantage. You don't have to unfold it. Normally everything gets all folded up before deployment. You're sitting in the fairing, you're all crammed in there. Satellite gets launched off, and then it spreads its wings out, so to speak. You don't have to do any of that. I think that's kind of marginal because in reality, you're probably going to want metallic shielding anyway. You're going to have solar flares, and you also have to worry about defensive capabilities these days. You probably need to protect the electronics with some metal anyway. So maybe that's not quite as much of an advantage. It does sound environmentally friendly. The wood is environmentally friendly to make, at least for the wood part of the satellite. So the production would be. And they also make the point on the re-entry that it'll just burn up in the atmosphere quite nicely. You don't get anywhere near as much particles of metal that you would get with, say, aluminum. Personally, I don't find that compelling. And it's kind of funny because the Finns, they were pretty honest about this in the beginning. They said, basically, because we can. We like trees. That was another thing. And PR, PR for the forestry companies. One that was interesting one was that they wanted to show off beautiful Nordic design. I mean, they actually said that in an interview. I read about that. But really, it evolved. And by the way, that picture down here at the bottom, that's from the Japanese, the Sumitomo Forestry. That is their tagline, happiness grows from trees. They've even sponsored research at the University of Kyoto for seeing if stress will be reduced in people in, stressed environments like, a moon colony or something. Longer range perspective, though. What if wood really does stand up well to space conditions? It'll probably stand up well on the moon or Mars then as well. You could actually imagine having greenhouses on the moon or Mars, and you can generate building materials from that. We know how to use wood as a building material. I mean, what are the alternatives here? You bring it from Earth, that's really expensive, or you use regolith, the dirt that's there, or maybe bioplastics, and that's another alternative that's been tossed around, is you grow plants and then you convert that to plastics, and that's a whole lot of extra chemistry that has to get involved. Maybe you could just use trees. Yeah, it's not completely crazy. I find it interesting. There's a deeper message here, though, and that's that all around the world, there's these little pockets of people that are thinking, we really are going to be expanding into space at some point. And how would we be involved in that? And so, here's a forestry company saying, let's think about this. I find that actually quite encouraging. It's very slow. People are kind of gearing up for it, but it's entering the mindset. Now, unfortunately, 98% of the people don't think about this at all, but there still are some, and I think it probably is growing. Other space-related videos or slide presentations by me are available at the link shown here. That includes a web page and also a list of videos at my YouTube channel, so you can view them or subscribe for notifications about future videos. These presentations are mostly made as part of the meetings of National Space Society's North Houston chapter, and the link to that is shown. Topics like these are presented as part of a monthly news segment, and there are also lots of other interesting speakers and open discussions. You can attend in person or online via Zoom. Come join us.